Today I'm going to show you how to make progressive breaks, and we're going to end up with this. I was inspired to do this by listening to a track by Pete K, whom I've recently interviewed, and our accelerator student Zoya, who released music in this style on Anjunabeats. We're going to go through finding a breakbeat sample and chopping it up, creating a motive chord progression from scratch, even if you don't know any music theory. Energy's low. And the feels start coming in. Deep, rich bass lines and some awesome vocal tricks. And now you've got something amazing. As usual, you can download the project file, all the samples completely free. And without further ado, let's hop into the door and get it done. Okay, so first thing we need to talk about is the vibe of this style of music, and it's really ethereal. We've got some old school vocals in there to give it a slightly old school feel, and we've obviously got the breaks so the beats aren't hitting on every single 4/4 beat. First thing we're going to do is put the tempo in, 125, and then get a nice big fat kick. So I'm going to go to my favorites pack. Very important to have favorites so you can work extra quickly. Let's have a listen. Yeah, I like that one because there's some toppiness to it, and because it's breakbeat, we want to have an element of real drums in there, not just all synthesized drums. And we're going to get to that very shortly. So first, let's program in this. And if I'm going a bit weird today, it's because I've got this new setup in this awesome studio and I'm not used to the mouse. But anyway, if we put the metronome on, usually, or a techno track, that beat's going to fall on every beat. The kick's going to fall on every beat like this. But we don't want that because we're making breaks today. So what we're going to do is move that over, and we're going to use the second kind of beat, which is what's used for hip hop, drum and bass, and indeed breakbeat. So that's what we need. Let's just move it over, and then we can just repeat this kick pattern all the way through. It gives this really cool groove. Now, to augment that, we obviously need a breakbeat, and usually you would do this with a sample. You could program in everything yourself in MIDI, but that's not how breakbeat's usually made. You're usually going to augment it with a real drummer. So what I'm going to do is pop to Splice, but you could use Loop Cloud as well, or any other sample pack that's got some breaks, and I'm just going to go for breakbeat and see what we come up with. And we just want to use breakbeat. BPM, let's go for a range anywhere between 120 and 130 should do. It doesn't have to be completely exact because of course we can warp it. And let's have a listen to some of these. That's too harsh. That's cool. That's cool as well. Let's use that one in fact. Oh, it's already in my library. Great. Here's one I downloaded earlier. Now we're going to drag that over and make sure it's all synced up. So our project's in 125. This loop is 128, tells us there. We can see it's already warped, lovely jubbly. And now let's bring that up and call that break. And then we're going to color that. If I can figure out how to hit the right mouse button, I can't. So we're going to have to use no colors today because I've never used this mouse before. Okay, but we can name it, like good boys and girls. Speaking of naming it, let's name this project. What should we name this? Well, it's in the style of Pete K and it's breakbeat. So let's call it Peter Piper, Paul and Pepper. I don't know why, but that's what's happened. So let's just now make it. So with the beats underneath, we can hear what's going on. And we have a bit of a fighting situation with this break, so we're going to need to duck it with a sidechain compressor, which we'll get to very shortly. But first, let's tighten it up a bit. If you quantize it too much, you could lose some of that swing. So I'm just going to quantize it to 16ths, because all the fun happens on the 16ths, but I'm not going to do it 100%. And let's see what happens to these transients here. Boom. And it's just going to tighten up that loop. Nice. Okay, it's sounding a bit thin, so next thing I'm going to do is add some saturation. You could augment each of these main snares with a MIDI sample, but I'm just going to use a saturator to kind of fatten the whole loop up. And I'm going to use the raw that's come with Ableton 12 because it's really good, because we can set it to multi-band mode, so then we can just fatten up the low end, which is what we want, because the top end's already sounding good. So now let's loop this and just have a listen to what happens to this loop as we add some saturation in the low end. Really thin, rubbish. Nice, fat. Let's add a little bit to the mids as well. Okay, this is where we were. Rubbish. This is where we are now. Best thing I've ever heard in my entire life. So next thing we're going to do is duck this with the sidechain compressor because it's fighting with our kick, and the kick's really important. Now I like the feel of this kick, layered with the breakbeat. It gives it a really nice texture. So what I'm going to do is grab that kick and I'm going to make sure that's the one that plays where all the other kicks play, just to make sure I've got some continuity. But we can also chop this breakbeat up, and this is where it gets really fun. This is really important for making drum and bass as well. We can actually drag over some of these snares to happen in a different place. It gives it a really interesting feel. Cool, loving that already. That's so cool. Okay, we're going to use that little break or that little drum fill in a little while. We're going to use that at the end of this repeat. But at the moment, we're just going to keep normal snare. And we've got that really cool kind of snare skip that happens that we've just created. So let's just duplicate that. Everything apart from the end where we're going to keep the drum fill. And then let's duplicate the kick. Whoops. Like I said, not used to this mouse. In fact, there's something else I'm going to add there as well. A nice little cheeky drum fill. So I'm going to copy that snare. This is why I love working with samples. We can have a little snare skip there. One of the two snare skip points, which I mentioned in new music theory for EDM producers course, which has just come out. Let's do another one actually. This is really cheeky. Okay, so now we've got this drum intro. Oh, savage. Okay, next thing we need to do is compress some of these break beats when the kick is playing. So the way we'll do that is get a compressor on there, like so. Let's put it after the saturator. Open up this little button here, choose sidechain, and then I'm going to choose the sidechain trigger track, which I created before. Now, usually the sidechain trigger would go on every beat, like boom, boom, boom. For a house track, you can see it's hitting on every beat there. But we want this to be ducking in exactly the same time as the new kick that we've put in. So not on every beat. Let's just call that SC trigger for organization and duplicate it. And what I've got is a little sample here, just a little rim shot, and that's set to sends only. So we never actually hear that, but what it does allows us to route it to different things, like predominantly a sidechain compressor. So now when we go back to the break, check it out. We can set a very fast attack, choose the input from sidechain trigger, and now check. We can duck everything when that kick's playing. So now it's just going to gel perfectly together. Oh, so good. Okay, next thing on my magic list is baton, done that, adding some extra hats. So this is where I am going to use MIDI, and we're just going to add some extra sizzly 16th hats on there. You've got to have sizzle, man. Got to have sizzle. So we're going to go to drum hits, and we don't need to pick anything super complex. Just a little, like that will do. And then we can tweak the attack on that to make it more of a shaker. So I'm just going to bring that into my drum rack. You can do it in audio if you like, but I like to use the drum rack. And then I'm going to make it a bit quieter if I can use this gammy mouse. And then let's just program it in. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold command and I'm going to drop the velocity of every other hat. And that's just going to give it some human feel, because it's going to play this one slightly louder than this one. I don't want the shuffle to go the whole time though. I want to have it be a bit broken up like the breakbeat. So let's just duplicate that. Now we've got this kind of effect. I'm going to take out the low end. In fact, I'll have it just play where those snares play, because I think that sounds really good. Yeah, that's cool. So we're going to go for that pattern instead. It's all an experimental process. And now let's have a listen. Now we've got that extra shuffle in there. Brilliant. Okay, next thing we have is the chords. Now for Pete K's music, we've got these beautiful 7th chords. And for all you guys and girls that watch the channel regularly, you know I love a good 7th chord, a heart melter. That's what we want. So we're going to call this chords. And we are going to use Serum for this. Now we could use Wavetable actually, so everything's... No, I'll use Serum because I know loads of you have got Serum. Right, now we can draw in the chords. I'm going to make this a bit quieter. I wish I could change the colours. I could figure it out if I wanted, but oh, that was easy, wasn't it? Let's colour it cyan, the natural colour of synths. This will have to be green, the natural colour of drums in the wild, prowling around the audio landscape. And now what we're going to do is just use the piano roll editor to draw in these chords. Now I recommend, if you're new to music theory, getting our new music theory for EDM producers course, but you could use A minor as the simplest key to work in. So once you've chosen A minor, hit scale, you'll notice it's just the white notes from A up to A. So it's really easy to kind of stick to the same key and know where you are. So the root note of this key would be the A, like so. That's going to be a bit loud. Amazing chords there, Will. Well done. Okay, so what we're going to do is write in the bass notes of the chord progression first, because then we can build the chords over the top. That's a bit long actually, so let's do it half the length. Nice. And what I'm doing here is these notes, these bass notes, are changing 1/8 before the beat. So the beat's here, and if I change this grid to 8ths instead of 16ths, which I can't seem to be able to do. Oh yeah, there we go. We change it to 8ths. You can see this is happening 1/8 before. This is happening 1/8 before that beat, and it just really pushes the groove forwards. And I'm doing it a bit higher up than the bass, like an octave or two up, so it's easier to hear the pitch. So let's drop it down a couple of octaves. And that should... It's important to get a bass progression that you like, otherwise the chords aren't ever going to sound good. You have to get those root notes right. So now we've done that, I can duplicate them, put them up an octave, and I can start building out the chords just by skipping a note each time once you're in scale mode. So let's build out those normal triads. Okay, it's the first of the chord, and that's the third of the chord, and that's the fifth of the chord. So we're just going to do that for all the chords. Really easy, so it looks like these little hamburgers. And now we've got this, our standard triad progression. Just means there's 3 notes in a chord for a triad. Cool, but now, as I said, we want to add these emotional 7ths, and all that is the 7th position above the root note. So the first, the third, the fifth, the 7th. Do that for all of these chords. You don't need to do it for all of them. And I'm going to add the 9th as well. Crazy boy. So there we go. That's almost too nice. Amazing. Let's add the 9ths. And then we're going to use what are known as chord inversions in a second, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. All right, there's a dodgy note in there. That is a diminished interval. So when you get a chord that has that weird sound in it, diminished 7th, we can just move that up or down 1 position and it's going to sound good. Now, to bring these closer together, there's the diminished. I'm going to do what are known as chord inversions, and all that means is we change the order of the notes in the chord. So we're using the same notes in the chord, we're just changing the order. And I'm going to bring them all a bit closer together. So I'm going to bring that down an octave, bring these down an octave. Yeah, and then these down an octave. So you can see they're the same notes, just in a different order. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now make the bass line. So I can just grab the root notes of all the chords like so. Delete them, so we're not messing with the bass frequencies. And then I'm going to create a bass line in there. I'm just going to paste those. Boom. And we're going to choose another serum in a second. But first, let's get these chords sounding good. So I'm going to just add some unison, which is doubling up the sound wave and just detuning it slightly, which is going to really thicken it up and make it sound wide. I could just literally listen to that all day long, every day. Now let's take up the low end so it doesn't fight with our bass line when we add it. We're going to add some really cool stuff to these chords in a few minutes, so wait for that. Next thing we're going to do is just assign track color. For the bass, we'll use another serum, and we want a really nice, rich, deep synth kind of respace for this. So that's going to be based on a saw wave still, like so. But we want this to be really wide and thick as well. The trouble is, if you do that with frequencies below 120 hertz or so, you can have phase cancellation in your low end, which can really suck the power out of your track. And this is like very bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to split this bass into two bass channels, sub bass and mid bass. I'll just leave it as bass at the moment. And first, let's deal with the sub. So we're going to keep this without any kind of wide stereo effects on it. So let's start with our saw wave. We'll put a filter on it. And we're going to add another oscillator, send that to the filter, but I'm going to drop this an octave and just feed a little bit of it in. Just the merest shmee hint to make it extra growlsome. Yes, that is a word. Let's see if we can add another oscillator. Oh, that is deep. Deep and rich, like a good gravy. Now what we're going to do is add an EQ on that, and instead of rolling off the low end, we're going to roll off the top end. So we're really just keeping it nice and deep. And then for the mid bass, we are going to roll off the low end. So they're going to both gel together and sound like one bass sound. Again, just over 100 hertz. But with this one, we can really spread it wide now. So listen to this on its own. With the low frequencies taken out, it's not really a bass line. It's just like a mid sound. But now we can do this. And get that really modulated, respace sound. And now with our sub bass. Deep and rich, as I said. So let's group these two bass lines together, and we're going to keep it organized. And now they're both going to this audio group, and we're going to add another sidechain compressor there so that the bass can duck in time with the kick. So let's stick that on there. And this is what we're going to do. So it's now ducking every time the kick plays. And so far we have this. Now with the chords, let's put a sidechain compressor on as well. So it really allows that kick drum to pop through the mix. Okay, next we have is the sidechain compression, which I've just shown you. So what I want you to do is give me a hell yeah. Oh, amen, brother, if you're enjoying this. And don't forget, you can download the project below. So next thing we want to do before we get the vocal is make these chords sound awesome, as I promised. I get excited at this point, see? So let's add some modulation to them. What I'm going to do is add a flanger or a phaser, not sure which yet. Let's see. So we go down to, it's quite hard to find stuff. Oh, it's literally selected. Well done, Will. So I'm going to put it before the EQ so we don't get any wayward low frequencies. I'm going to put an arbitrary hertz amount so it's not synced to the tempo. Switch its flanger. And then just dial maybe 40% of that in and warm it up a bit with this warmth button. And last thing we want to do is add some reverb. So I've created an auxiliary channel, this one here, the second one, and I'm going to feed some of this chords out to that. And it's a big reverb. And suddenly you're transported to heaven. We can actually duck that reverb as well with a sidechain compressor. But a bit less. And that bass can open up the filter on that. Okay, I'll do this a bit later because I get carried away. Okay, next thing we need to do is get those old school vocals in there because that's going to help give us that old school feel. So I'm going to just new audio track, which we're just called, unsurprisingly, vocals. Well done, Will. Color it purple, natural color of the human throat. There we go. And then we're going to go back to Splice, but again, you could use Loop Cloud. It's just, I've already got Splice loaded up. You can use my link below if you want to help support the channel. And now we're going to go vocals. Actually, I'm going to look for Rave vocals because I distinctly want that 90s feel. And I'm going to search for a minor key. It doesn't really matter which minor key because you can just transpose it afterwards. But to make things quicker, I will select A minor as the key we're going to search for. And we want female vocals, so they fit well with the other frequencies in there. There we go. And now let's just see what comes up. I know that you... No, that's not... Oh, look at this, smiley face. That means it's going to be... That's a bit loud. Now we need something like emotional damage. Yeah, we'll go for higher for sure. We're going to have to compress it a bit because it's a bit peaky, isn't it? So this is going to really add that 90s feel to it. So again, make sure it's warped correctly. 108, it's already warped. Complex Pro, that's the best algorithm for warping vocals. And now let's turn it down because I can see it needs some compression. With these chords, we might spread them out over a couple of octaves. So I'm just doing more chord inversions. That sounds cool. We'll add some strings soon as well. What happens if we put them all up an octave? No, too much. Okay, next thing we're going to do with these vocals is put them on the right channel. For starters, and then we are going to just add a little bit of compression because that first huh of the higher, that's really loud. So we're going to choose a compressor. I'm going to use the glue compressor for this just to make it a bit more natural and no, that's already sounding better. And next thing we want to do is add some reverb to that. I'll just use the same one. Okay, next thing we need to do is add the secondary vocals. We're not done yet, that's for sure. We want to create a vocal chop rhythm, and then I'm going to show you something that I haven't shown for years, which is going to really give that bicep feel to these breaks. But first thing is that secondary vocal. So I am going to look for a different key. I'll just look for a minor key, and then I'll transpose it just to show you how it's done, if you want to do that. So A, no, we don't need A, we just need minor. Any minor key. Now let's listen for something that's got the right vibe.
I let you in.
Oh, I don't even need to chop that up because it's already so good.
Take me away. I want you. Take me away.
We're going to use this one. It is in F sharp minor. My eyes are going funny. So I'm going to drag that in. And if it's in F sharp minor, we can look at a keyboard. There's one over there, not right in front of me. But if we go into the piano roll editor, we need to turn the scale mode off. And if these vocals are in F sharp minor, that's F sharp. So we need to transpose them to A minor. So that means we need to put them up 1, 2, 3 semitones. So let's go to those vocals, make sure they're warped correctly. So 128, which is the tempo of the sample, not the project. So we need to make sure this is the tempo of the sample, not the project. Then we're going to choose Complex Pro and just put it up 3 semitones. And I really hope this is in the right key now, otherwise I'm going to look very silly. It is, but I'm actually going to put it up to a different note within that scale because I think it'll work better. No, don't like it. All right, forget that. Forget you ever saw it. Let's go back to a different vocal.
I want your love. Just take me away.
That's extreme. I want to chop one. Chop. Yeah, this one's great. We're going to grab that, and that is in B flat minor. But we can, again, do the same job. So if that's in B flat minor, make sure it's warped correctly. And then to go from B flat to A, if we look in our piano roll editor, B flat, A sharp's the same as B flat. I won't go into it now, but it is. So we just need to take it down 1 semitone. So we can go in there and just take it down 1 semitone. And it should, Complex Pro, be in key. Oh yes, that works really well. But it's not warped to the correct tempo, should be 124. Oh, it's just a syncopated. Okay, but what we're going to do is just take the beginning of it, and then I'm going to do this vocal chop thing I wanted to show you. So we're going to have this last bit just reverse. So it's actually playing on the same note as the kick. Boom, tsh, boom, tsh. So what we're going to do is we're going to chop this up. Again, chopping up loops is fun. And now we've just reversed that one. So we chopped it up, consolidated that little part, and then pressed R to reverse it. Now we've got this. Let's just blend those together because there's a bit of a glitch. And this one as well. Just using the crossfades. So now we can just copy that. And what I'm going to do is just spice this up at the end, much like we did with the snare sample. Like so. And then I'm going to pitch it down. So now we've got this slight variation in pitch at the end of that little loop. All together with the drums, we've got this amazing sound. I think it sounds amazing anyway. Let's have a listen. So now we've really got that old school rave feel. Oh, so good. Okay, next thing we have to do is add the arpeggio. This is really going to bring everything together, and then we're going to do some arrangement and a little bit of mixing as well. So first, let's drag everything over. Don't need that. We're going to drag everything over, duplicate, 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 and then we're going to create a beautiful break. And we can get rid of the kicks and the trigger. Don't need that for the time being. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The arrangement will work in 4s, 8s and 16s, so just make sure that you're always working in multiples of 4. And then we can take the drums out. And then we've got this amazing break. Okay, next thing, what I want to do for this arpeggio is just duplicate the chords. And you could program the notes of the arpeggio in if you wanted, or you could use the same chords. You could use a different inversion of those chords if you wanted to really spice things up. I don't know how this is going to sound, but we'll find out soon, won't we? I suppose it's all about doing the fun stuff. So we've got these different inversions now. And just duplicate that. I really hope it doesn't sound rubbish. And then we are going to choose a different sound. We're going to make a plucky sound. Let's turn off the reverb. It's going to distract us. So we've got these lovely chords still. Turn off these effects. Make a plucky sound. Just take down the decay and the sustain. You can have that. You could just add some lovely delay on that. Or we could put a filter envelope on there. Oh, that's already nice. And now for the fun bit. We're going to go for MIDI effects. We're going to put an arpeggiator on there. And what it's going to do is play each of those notes in the chord in sequence, and we get to choose the speed and the sequence. So we can choose 16ths, but I'm just going to take it off of sync at the moment. So it's an arbitrary millisecond amount, because I want to blow your mind, frankly. So let's have a listen to this. So it's playing each of those notes of the chord. But what we're going to do is set this to 16ths. Like so. Let's make it go down. Add a little bit of release. Choose a different wavetable. Oh, we could even choose a completely different one. See what that sounds like. Basic shapes. A square wave. And now, with everything else, we can add this as well. That's almost too nice though. Sub-focus, anyone? Reverb. Oh. So let's do some arrangement. So we'll start the break and we're going to filter those chords in or out. So the way we can do that is we can add a filter, or we could do it within the actual synth itself, but I'm just going to do it here. So let's take these chords down, add some resonance, and let's add some automation. So we're going to take these down. It's going to start low in the break and slowly open up. Probably do that before the compressor and the EQ, so we can control those shapes a little bit. You might even put a bit of a compressor on there as well. So let's duplicate all this. And now the arpeggio comes in. And now the bass. Hands in the air moment. And then we get back to the drop. Build. Taxi. Don't turn all of the drums off, Will. Whoa, 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 cut, cut, cut. I completely forgot to add the kind of bicep trick that I promised you, which is going to transform this Rave vocal into something amazing. So what we're going to do is turn off the reverb, and we're going to put reverb on the channel itself. And we're going to compress it. No, we can leave the compression there. So let's add the reverb to the channel itself and make it really nice and long. Even longer, even longer. And you'll see why in a second. So you've got this really epic sound now. But what we're going to do is actually put that reverb before the compressor. So the reverb's going to get pushed through the compressor. So it's going to make it last longer. So it just helps that reverb last a little bit longer. Now, this is the special trick. We're going to create a MIDI channel, and you can pick any synth for this at all. Doesn't matter which synth. You know, you could use, we'll use Serum because we've been using it, but you could literally use any synth. The important thing is to have a very short, sharp, sustained sound. Not sustained, well, it is sustained, but with no release. And what we're going to do is just draw in a rhythm on the 16th note. You could do one on every 16th, like so. It doesn't even matter which note you hit. I know it sounds crazy, but you'll understand in a second. So you could do one on every note. I'm going to actually do it on the root note of the track, just because it's going to sound better when we hear it. You won't end up hearing it. You'll end up not hearing it, is my point. So we've got this, but let's create something interesting in terms of a pattern. So we've got this cool syncopated pattern. Let's just repeat that and then add a little bit of variation the second time round, like so. Just add one more note, copy all that, and then duplicate it. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because on the vocal track, what we're going to do is create another compressor. No, we're not going to create a compressor, tell a lie. We're going to create a gate. One of those devices or plugins that you probably barely ever use. Well, now you are. Now we're going to put the gate on at the end of the chain, open up this little button and take the sidechain input from that Serum. In fact, let's call that trigger, just so we know that no sound is going to come out of that ultimately. Then we're going to choose that input from trigger. And what we're going to do is use this noise gate to silence our vocal whenever the trigger is not playing. So when the trigger plays, the vocal comes through. When the trigger's not playing, the vocal gets cut out. And you're going to get this really cool stuttering effect. So let's just loop this part and have a listen to it. And you have to take the threshold down. And obviously turn the vocal audio on. But it's being all kind of, it's being hidden by the trigger sound. So all we have to do is select the output to sends only, much like we did with the sidechain trigger for the drums. Now you'll only hear the vocal. So it's all about now tweaking the shape of this synth. And tweaking the shape or tweaking the settings of this gate. So now you've got that really cool effect. But what I like to do is actually make those 16th synth notes slightly shorter, which allows a gap to play in between each of them. And then you get more of a stuttery effect. So that's how you get that really cool stuttery bicep type sound. And you can add some more reverb onto that chain afterwards to smooth it out a bit. And now you've got something amazing. You have to make sure that trigger channel's playing, otherwise you won't get any vocals out of it. Ooh. I'm going to do a bit more work on that, and you can hear the finished result playing in the background now after I've spent another 20 minutes on this, and you can download the project file below this video. So let's have a listen to it. Love this. See, I've made the arpeggio nicer, added some more vocals, some more automation. Now we're going to get to the break. We've got to build now. Just hold the root without the chords changing, and this just builds tension. And now we go back to the chord progression, but really like energy's low. And the feels start coming in. And now we're going to add a little tickle of drums just to tease people. Filter opens up. And then we'll get to the big build. Hold. Again, holding that root note, because it makes bigger tension and release. Ooh. Riser. And there we go, guys. If you enjoyed this, you can download this project file, all the samples and presets completely free below. And if you did enjoy it, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, thank you for watching, and then check this video out, because if you want to get released on some of the world's biggest labels like some of our other accelerator students, this is really going to help you out with that deep melodic house sound. So thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you over at the next video.